There's a new 25% management fee on your 8-month bonus. Company policy, he said, pushing the paper across his desk without looking up. I stared at the figure on the page. $15,000, reduced to $11,250. A management fee, I repeated, the words tasting strange. I'd never heard of such a thing in my 4 years with the company. Mr. Larkin finally met my gaze. Yes, Olivia. Management oversees all major projects. This fee reflects that involvement. I held the paper carefully, afraid my trembling fingers would tear it. And when exactly was this policy created? It's always been there, he said, tapping his expensive watch. Just never applied before. Budget constraints. I knew he was lying. I'd reviewed every company policy manual 3 times over during my efficiency audit. I see, I said, keeping my face neutral while something inside me cracked. And does this apply to everyone's bonuses? He shuffled some papers. I have another meeting. We can discuss this later if you have concerns. I stood, clutching the bonus statement. $3,750 gone. My daughter's asthma treatments for a year. The security deposit on an apartment without mold. The money I'd promised my mother to help with her medications. Thank you for the explanation, I said, as if he'd given one. That night, I sat on my kitchen floor, surrounded by bills, Arya's inhaler prescription, 3 late rent notices, the water damage on our ceiling that the landlord ignored, 8 months of missed bedtime stories, of mommy has to work late, had earned me this bonus. It wasn't just money, it was our escape route. But now, a quarter of it vanished into Mr. Larkin's pocket. Before I continue what happened next, thank you for listening to my story today. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below. It always amazes me how connected we are, despite the distances between us. My name is Olivia Reed. 4 years ago, I joined Sterling Analytics as a data specialist. Most people's eyes glaze over when I explain what I do, finding patterns in numbers, identifying inefficiencies, creating predictive models. But numbers tell stories if you know how to listen. I was hired 2 months after my ex-husband emptied our joint account and disappeared. Left with a 4-year-old daughter, no savings, and a mountain of debt, I needed stability more than respect. Sterling offered both, initially. My apartment was small but functional. 1 bedroom that I gave to Arya while I slept on a pull-out couch. The neighborhood wasn't great, but it was close to a decent elementary school. We made it work. My supervisor, Trevor Larkin, recognized my talent immediately. You have a gift, he told me during my first performance review. You see connections others miss. What I saw about Trevor, he had an uncanny ability to take credit for his team's successes while distancing himself from failures. He maintained connections with upper management through golf games and whiskey tastings, activities I couldn't join as a single mother with no childcare options outside work hours. For 3 years, I kept my head down. I arrived early, stayed late when my mother could watch Arya, and delivered spotless analyses that Trevor presented as collaborative efforts. I didn't mind. Every small raise meant 1 less bill to worry about, 1 more treat I could afford for my daughter. Then came the efficiency project. The company was bleeding money during the economic downturn. The CEO announced emergency cost-cutting measures, including a freeze on raises and bonuses. Unless, he added, someone could identify substantial savings within the company itself. Trevor volunteered our department. Olivia, he said, stopping by my desk one evening as I was packing up. The CEO needs someone who can analyze everything. Supply chains, workflow, energy usage patterns, all of it. Find millions in savings. That sounds like a massive undertaking. It is, but there's a substantial completion bonus. Life-changing money, his eyes gleamed. I thought of you immediately. I should have asked more questions. I should have requested the parameters in writing. Instead, I thought of Arya's wheezing at night, of our bathroom ceiling growing black mold that no amount of bleach could permanently remove. I'll do it, I said. The project consumed 8 months of my life. I analyzed everything from the number of printers per department to the efficiency of heating systems. I created models showing potential savings from remote work policies and consolidated vendor contracts. Arya would fall asleep on our couch as I worked, her breathing machine humming beside her. My mother helped when she could, but her own health was failing. The final report identified $3.7 million in potential annual savings. When I showed Trevor, his expression shifted from shock to calculation so quickly I almost missed it. This is impressive, he said. I'll need to review it before we present to leadership. 2 days later, I sat in the back row of the conference room while Trevor stood at the front, clicking through my slides, occasionally saying, "As my team discovered," or "Our analysis shows." The CEO called it industry-changing work and authorized the promised bonus. Trevor nodded gravely, accepting congratulations while occasionally gesturing in my general direction as his analyst. I didn't care about the credit. The bonus would transform our lives. I'd calculated exactly how it would be allocated. Medical bills, a security deposit, and first 3 months' rent on a better apartment, a reliable used car, and a small emergency fund. Freedom, of a sort, until Trevor's management fee erased a quarter of it. That night, after putting Arya to bed, I researched company policies until my eyes burned. Nothing about management fees on bonuses. Nothing. I checked my employment contract again. The bonus structure was clearly defined, based on measurable savings identified, with no mention of deductions beyond standard taxes. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "How did it go? Did you get your bonus?" I couldn't tell her the truth. "Not yet. Still processing," I replied. "Should have it soon." I looked at my daughter's school picture on the refrigerator. Arya had her father's curly hair and my determined chin. She'd been so brave through all the moves, the tight budgets, the nights I came home exhausted, 8 years old and already understanding concepts like, "We can't afford that right now," and "maybe next month." The management fee wasn't just about money. It was about dignity, about promises kept or broken. I opened my laptop again, this time pulling up our company's financial disclosure policies, then the employee handbook section on reporting ethical concerns. Finally, the organization chart. Trevor reported to the vice president of analytics, who reported to the chief operations officer, who reported to the CEO. 3 layers of management that might or might not take my concerns seriously. There had to be another way. I noticed an alert pop up on my calendar app. Team meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Trevor would be presenting the quarterly plan. The chief financial officer often attended these meetings to discuss budget implications. A plan began forming in my mind. The next morning, I stopped by Donut Palace on my way to work and bought 24 assorted pastries, something I'd never done before. The woman behind the counter raised her eyebrows when I requested an extra-large black coffee with the order. "Long night?" she asked. "Long 8 months," I replied. "But maybe things are looking up." I arrived at the office 30 minutes early. Most of my colleagues were already at their desks, surprised when I offered them donuts. "What's the occasion?" asked McKenna, our marketing liaison. "Just grateful for such a supportive team," I said, my smile feeling strange on my face. I saved a maple bar, Trevor's favorite, and placed it on a napkin beside his usual seat in the conference room, along with the large black coffee. When he walked in, his appearance startled me. Trevor wore the same clothes as yesterday, with dark circles under his eyes. His normally perfectly combed hair looked hastily fixed. "Late night?" I asked innocently. He grunted something about finalizing the quarterly budget and grabbed the coffee gratefully. As our colleagues filed in, I noticed Trevor checking his phone repeatedly, his forehead creasing. He seemed distracted, nervous even. "Let's get started," he finally said, standing at the front of the room. "We have a lot to cover. First, the Williams contract." I raised my hand slightly. "Actually, I have a quick question about the new bonus fee structure." His coffee cup froze midway to his lips. "We can address that privately, Olivia. It's just, I'm confused," I continued, looking around the table. "Did everyone else's project bonuses have the 25% management fee too?" Confusion spread across my colleagues' faces. "What management fee?" asked McKenna, our finance coordinator. The door swung open. The CEO walked in with the chief financial officer. "Sorry to interrupt," said the CEO, his tall frame filling the doorway. "Just wanted to personally check on implementing those brilliant cost-saving measures." He nodded at me. "That analysis was remarkable work." Trevor's laugh sounded brittle. "We were just discussing implementation strategies." "Actually," I said softly, "we were discussing the new 25% management fee on project bonuses. I wanted to understand when this policy was created." I turned to the CFO. "Would your office have records of when this policy was implemented?" My supervisor's face drained of color. The CFO frowned. There's no such policy, she said. Trevor cleared his throat. It's a recent implementation. Perhaps it hasn't reached all departments yet. I removed a folder from my bag. That's strange. Here's my bonus statement, with the deduction clearly marked as management fee, company policy. I slid the paper toward the CFO, who picked it up with a deepening frown. I've never seen this format before, she said, examining the document. I nodded. I thought it seemed unusual too. The CEO stepped forward. What exactly are we talking about here? A misunderstanding, I'm sure, Trevor said quickly. Olivia received her project bonus yesterday, and there seems to be some confusion about standard deductions. A 25% deduction isn't standard, I said quietly. And according to my employment contract, the bonus structure is very specific. I slid a second paper forward. Not bank transfers, as everyone expected, but a single spreadsheet. The quarterly budget Trevor had accidentally left open on his computer when he rushed to the bathroom after I brought him his favorite donut. A budget showing a special performance incentive matching exactly 25% of my bonus, allocated to himself. The room went silent. The CFO gently took the paper, studied it, then passed it to the CEO. Where did you get this? Trevor demanded, his voice rising. Your computer screen. You left it open when you stepped out earlier. I was leaving the financial projection you asked for on your desk. I met his gaze. I wouldn't normally look at your files, but seeing my bonus amount with that exact 25% figure under your name caught my attention. The CEO's expression hardened. Trevor, is there an explanation for this? Trevor's laugh sounded hollow. This is ridiculous. It's obviously a mistake in the spreadsheet. I was working late on budget allocations, which don't typically include redirecting portions of employee bonuses to management, the CFO interrupted. She turned to me. Miss Reed, how long have you worked here? 4 years next month, I answered. And has this happened before? Deductions from your compensation that seemed unusual? I hesitated. There had been other instances, smaller ones, a promised raise that came through, lower than discussed, a training opportunity that required an administrative fee I later discovered no one else paid. There have been discrepancies, I said carefully. The CEO's jaw tightened. I think we need to continue this conversation in my office. Trevor, please bring all bonus documentation from the past year. Miss Reed, if you'd join us as well. He turned to the rest of the team. Meeting adjourned for now. As everyone filed out, Trevor grabbed my arm. You have no idea what you've done, he hissed. I gently removed his hand. I think I do. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from my childcare provider. Arya had another asthma attack at school. They'd given her the rescue inhaler, but she needed to go home. I felt the familiar twist of anxiety, the impossible balance between being a mother and keeping the job that allowed me to be a mother. I need to make a call, I told the CEO. My daughter's ill. It will just take a minute. He nodded, his expression softening slightly. I stepped into the hallway, arranging for my mother to pick up Arya, despite her own chronic pain. Another favor I'd have to repay, another apology I'd have to make. When I returned, Trevor was already in the CEO's office, his voice audible through the door. Completely dedicated to this company. One misunderstanding shouldn't erase years of leadership. I knocked and entered. The CFO sat reviewing documents, while the CEO stood looking out the window. Miss Reed, the CEO said, turning. Please sit. I took the chair farthest from Trevor, whose face had morphed from anger to a calculated pleasantness. I've explained the situation, Trevor said smoothly. The management fee was my mistake, a misinterpretation of new budget guidelines. I'll certainly rectify the error immediately. The CEO studied me. Is that satisfactory, Miss Reed? Was it? The money would be returned, but the betrayal remained. The pattern would continue with someone else, someone who might not catch it or couldn't afford to speak up. May I ask a question? I said. The CEO nodded. If there was no policy, why was the deduction labeled as company policy on my statement? That seems very specific. Trevor's pleasant expression flickered. As I said, it was a misinterpretation. Of what exactly? The CFO interrupted. Which budget guideline specifically mentions deducting from employee bonuses? Trevor had no answer. The meeting continued for another hour. I answered questions about my work on the efficiency project, about previous interactions with Trevor, about other financial discrepancies I'd noticed. By the end, the CEO asked Trevor to take a temporary leave while they conducted an investigation. The CFO assured me I'd receive my full bonus immediately, plus interest. As I gathered my things to leave, Trevor stopped me at the elevator. "You didn't have to do this," he said, his voice low. "I've helped you professionally, recommended you for projects, given you flexibility when your kid was sick. You also took credit for my work and stole part of my bonus," I replied. "It's not stealing when you've done all the groundwork," he snapped. "You think generating those reports was easy? Convincing leadership to approve that level of bonus? I deserved compensation for managing the project. You were already compensated. It's called a salary." The elevator arrived. I stepped in, but Trevor held the door. "You have no idea how this place works," he said. "No idea who I know, who trusts me. This won't end well for you." I thought of all the late nights, the missed bedtime stories, the promises to Arya that things would get better. "It already didn't end well for me," I said as the doors closed between us. When I arrived home that evening, the apartment felt smaller than usual, the water stain on the ceiling more prominent. Arya sat at our tiny kitchen table doing homework, her breathing machine humming beside her. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" I asked, kissing the top of her head. She shrugged. "Okay, Grandma made mac and cheese." My mother emerged from the bathroom, her movements slow and careful. Her rheumatoid arthritis was flaring again. "You're home early," she said, surprised. "Big day at work," I replied, not ready to explain everything. After Arya went to bed, I told my mother what happened. Her expression shifted from shock to worry. "What if he retaliates? Men like that don't just accept defeat." "The CEO and CFO saw the evidence," I said. "What can he do?" But as the days passed, I discovered exactly what Trevor could do. Subtle things at first. Emails I sent wouldn't reach their recipients. Files I needed for projects disappeared from shared drives. Colleagues who normally chatted with me at lunch suddenly found reasons to eat at their desks. A week after the meeting, the vice president of analytics, Trevor's direct superior and longtime golf buddy, called me into his office. "I understand there was an incident with Trevor," he began. "There was a financial discrepancy that's being investigated," I replied carefully. He nodded. "Yes. Well, while that investigation continues, we need to ensure all departments maintain productivity. I'm reassigning some of your projects to distribute the workload more evenly." By the end of the day, I'd lost access to the efficiency implementation I'd spent 8 months developing. My new assignment was auditing supply closet inventory across all 5 office locations. That night, I couldn't sleep. The full bonus had been deposited to my account as promised, but now my position seemed precarious. Without the visibility of important projects, how long would I remain valuable to the company? The next morning, I received an email from a name I didn't recognize, Elizabeth Torres, head of internal audit. She requested a meeting at 2 p.m. When I arrived at her office, I found a woman perhaps 10 years my senior, with close-cropped gray hair and sharp eyes. "Thank you for coming, Miss Reed," she said, gesturing to a chair. "I've been reviewing the efficiency report you created. Impressive work." "Thank you," I said, surprised, though I'm no longer assigned to the implementation. "So I heard." She studied me. "I also heard about the incident with Mr. Larkin." My stomach tightened. "That matter is under investigation." "Yes, by my department. That's why I wanted to speak with you directly." For the next hour, Elizabeth asked detailed questions about my interactions with Trevor, about financial irregularities I'd noticed, about project credits and compensation discussions. I answered honestly, providing dates and details where I could. "Do you have documentation of these other incidents?" she asked. "Some," I admitted. "I started keeping records after the second time. A promised raise came through, smaller than discussed." She nodded, making notes. "Smart. And how many others on your team experienced similar issues?" "I don't know," I realized. "We don't discuss compensation much." "Precisely why these situations persist," Elizabeth said. "Isolation is a powerful tool." As our meeting concluded, she handed me her card. "If you remember anything else, or if you experience any form of retaliation, contact me directly." "Retaliation? Isn't that already happening with my project reassignment?" Elizabeth's expression remained neutral. "Document everything. Forward me any relevant communications." Over the next 2 weeks, I did exactly that. The supply closet inventory expanded to include creating a new cataloging system. My performance metrics were suddenly reviewed daily rather than quarterly. Meeting invitations arrived with impossible timing. Scheduled during Arya's doctor appointments or school conferences, I'd requested off months in advance. Each incident went into a detailed log. Each questionable email was forwarded to Elizabeth. Meanwhile, Trevor returned from his temporary leave with a written warning, but otherwise unscathed. The vice president publicly welcomed him back, praising his invaluable leadership during challenging times. Trevor didn't speak to me directly, but I felt his influence everywhere. Projects I should have been consulted on proceeded without my input. Information reached me last, if at all. Even the woman who cleaned our office stopped emptying my trash bin. "You should start looking for another job," my mother advised as I vented my frustration one evening. "They're freezing you out." "Maybe," I admitted, "but something doesn't add up. Why bring him back at all if they found evidence of financial impropriety?" "Politics," she said simply. "Connections matter more than conduct." She wasn't wrong. Trevor's golf games with the VP and weekend fishing trips with board members had created a safety net I couldn't match. A single mother with asthmatic child couldn't build relationships over scotch and cigars, but I could build something else. I returned to the efficiency report, the complete version still saved on my personal drive. For 8 months, I'd analyzed every aspect of company operations. I'd examined every budget, every expense account, every vendor contract. I knew which departments ran efficiently and which hemorrhaged money through mismanagement or outdated processes. I also knew exactly where to look for patterns of financial irregularities. Starting that night after Arya went to bed, I began a new analysis. Not of company efficiency, but of Trevor Larkin's 4 years as department head. Every project budget he'd controlled, every bonus allocation, every expense report, information scattered across dozens of systems, but connected by tiny threads I could follow if I looked carefully enough. 3 days into my investigation, Elizabeth Torres called. "The internal audit is complete," she said without preamble. "The results are interesting. Can you meet tomorrow morning?" "What time?" I asked. 7 a.m., before most people arrive. When we hung up, I stared at my computer screen, at the spreadsheet I'd been building, at patterns emerging that went far beyond a single bonus deduction. I saved my work, encrypted the file, and backed it up to 3 different locations. Whatever happened tomorrow, I needed to be prepared. I arrived at the office at 6:55 a.m., clutching my travel mug of coffee like a lifeline. The parking garage sat mostly empty, the building quiet except for the cleaning staff. Elizabeth's office light shone from the end of the hallway. She waved me in, closing the door behind me. "Thank you for coming so early," she said. "Your call sounded urgent." I took a seat, noting the thick folder on her desk labeled "Confidential." "The audit committee met yesterday to review our findings regarding Mr. Larkin." She leaned forward. "What we discovered goes well beyond your bonus deduction." My pulse quickened. "What did you find?" "A pattern of financial manipulation dating back 3 years. Bonuses diverted, project budgets inflated with the difference pocketed, expense reports with phantom charges." She pushed the folder toward me. "Your documentation helped us identify the pattern." I opened the folder, scanning the summary page. The total amount misappropriated exceeded $170,000. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Because despite this evidence, the executive team is hesitating to take action." Her expression hardened. "The vice president is arguing for a private reprimand and repayment plan. No termination, no legal consequences. The injustice of it burned. Because of his connections." She nodded. "The VP claims pursuing this could damage company reputation. He's pushing to handle it discreetly, meaning everyone else still suffers while Trevor gets protected." "Precisely." Elizabeth studied me. "However, the CEO isn't entirely convinced by this approach. He's requested a special meeting tomorrow with the executive team. Trevor will present the quarterly strategy, including implementation of your efficiency plan." "Which I've been removed from," I reminded her. "Yes, officially." She slid another document across the desk. "But as head of internal audit, I need someone to verify certain financial projections in that presentation. Someone who understands the complete efficiency framework." The document was a temporary authorization returning my system access for 24 hours. "This seems," I hesitated, "necessary for a thorough audit," she finished. "Nothing more." I took the authorization, And what exactly should I be verifying? Everything, Miss Reed, particularly the projected savings figures for next quarter. I left her office, understanding the unspoken message. The audit had uncovered Trevor's pattern, but some executives wanted to protect him. Tomorrow's meeting represented a crossroads: continue the protection or expose the truth. And I now had access to verify exactly what Trevor planned to present. I spent that day reviewing the implementation plan for my efficiency recommendations. As expected, Trevor had modified several key components. He delayed the most impactful changes, diluted others, and entirely removed some that affected departments led by his allies. The modified plan would achieve barely 40% of the projected savings. That evening, I prepared 2 documents. The first contained my analysis of Trevor's implementation plan, highlighting the deviations from the original recommendations and their financial impact. The second document was different. For 3 nights, I'd been tracking Trevor's pattern of financial manipulation, not just what the audit found, but connections they might have missed. Projects where numbers changed between proposal and implementation. Team members whose bonuses didn't match their documented performance metrics. Budget allocations that shifted mysteriously between approval and execution. By midnight, I had a comprehensive record of every questionable financial decision in Trevor's department for the past 4 years. Not just the $170,000 the audit identified, but nearly $290,000 in total. I saved both files to a flash drive and finally went to bed. The next morning, I dressed with unusual care. A dark blue dress I'd bought on clearance last year but never worn. Small earrings my mother had given me for my 30th birthday. Battle armor of a sort. Arya noticed immediately. "You look pretty, Mom." "Thank you, sweetheart." I helped her pack her backpack. "Grandma will pick you up from school today, okay? I might be working late." She nodded, used to this routine. "Will we move soon? To the house with the yellow room?" The question caught me off guard. I'd shown her pictures of apartments in better neighborhoods, including one with a small yellow bedroom she'd immediately claimed as hers. "I'm working on it," I promised. "Things might change soon." At work, I reviewed Trevor's presentation once more. The executive meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. At 1:30, Elizabeth walked past my desk, nodding slightly. At 1:45, I took the elevator to the executive floor. Flash drive in my pocket, the conference room door stood open. Executives already gathering inside. The CEO noticed me first. "Miss Reed, can I help you?" "I was asked to provide some financial verification for today's presentation," I explained. "For the efficiency implementation discussion." He looked surprised but nodded. "Of course. We'll be addressing that portion around 2:30. I took a seat in the back corner, opening my laptop. Trevor entered minutes later, faltering slightly when he saw me, but quickly recovering. The vice president followed, frowning in my direction. "Why is Miss Reed here?" he asked the CEO quietly, but not quietly enough. "Financial verification," the CEO replied. "Given her intimate knowledge of the efficiency project, it seems appropriate." The VP looked displeased, but didn't object further. The meeting began with standard quarterly updates. I sat silently, waiting. At 2:25, Trevor stood to present the efficiency implementation plan. "As you know," he began, "my team developed a comprehensive efficiency framework projected to save $3.7 million annually. After careful analysis, I've optimized the implementation to balance immediate savings with operational stability." He displayed the modified projections, showing $2.9 million in savings, instead of the original $3.7 million. Still impressive, but significantly reduced. "Implementation will occur in 3 phases, he continued, outlining timelines that stretched the most impactful changes over 18 months, rather than the 6 I'd recommended. The CEO frowned. "This timeline seems extended from the original proposal." "Yes," Trevor agreed smoothly. "After detailed analysis, I determined that a more measured approach would reduce operational disruption." "And the reduced savings projection?" asked the CFO. "A more realistic figure, based on implementation challenges," Trevor replied. The original estimate was somewhat optimistic. I felt a sudden clarity, watching him confidently present my work with his modifications. This had always been the pattern. Take someone else's effort, alter it to serve your purposes, then present it as improved through your leadership. The The CEO glanced my way. Miss Reed, you created the original efficiency framework. Do you agree with these modifications? All eyes turned to me. Trevor's expression remained confident, but I could see tension in his shoulders. Actually, no, I said quietly. I don't agree. I connected my laptop to the projection system. With your permission, I'd like to show the impact of these modifications. The CEO nodded. I displayed my analysis, outlining how each change reduced the projected savings and extended the timeline unnecessarily. The original implementation plan remains entirely feasible within 6 months, I concluded. These modifications appear designed to protect certain departments from necessary changes while diluting the financial impact. Trevor's face flushed. This is absurd. You don't understand the operational complexities. I understand them perfectly, I interrupted. I spent 8 months identifying them. What's interesting is which departments receive preferential treatment in your modified plan. I displayed a chart showing the correlation between protected departments and executives with whom Trevor had personal relationships. The room went silent. The VP shifted uncomfortably. This is inappropriate, he finally said. Miss Reed is clearly upset about being removed from the implementation team. Why was she removed? The CEO asked sharply. Workload distribution? The VP replied. Standard procedure. After she reported financial misconduct, the CFO noted, timing that suggests retaliation. Elizabeth Torres chose that moment to enter the room. Sorry to interrupt, but I was told my audit findings might be relevant to this discussion. She distributed copies of the audit report to each executive. What followed was the most uncomfortable 2 hours of my professional life. The audit findings led to questions about Trevor's financial management. Those questions led to examination of his department's budgets. Those examinations led to discoveries of other discrepancies. Throughout, Trevor's confident facade crumbled piece by piece. His explanations grew increasingly convoluted. The VP's defenses weakened with each revelation. Finally, the CEO called a break. As executives filed out, he asked Trevor, Elizabeth, and me to remain. Miss Reed, he said, the financial verification you mentioned, was it limited to the efficiency implementation? I hesitated, then removed the flash drive from my pocket. No. After experiencing the bonus deduction and subsequent retaliation, I analyzed 4 years of financial data from Mr. Larkin's department. I connected the drive and displayed my findings. The comprehensive record of every questionable transaction, every diverted bonus, every inflated budget. Nearly $290,000, I concluded, affecting 27 employees. Trevor stood abruptly. This is a witch hunt. She has no authority to access these records. Actually, I do, I said. These are all projects I worked on, reports I generated, team members whose performance I evaluated. I simply connected information already available to me. The CEO's expression had grown progressively darker. Trevor, wait outside. After he left, the CEO turned to me. You've been very thorough, Miss Reed. I'm good with patterns, I said simply. 3 weeks later, I signed mortgage papers on a small house in a clean school district with good air quality. My daughter's new bedroom had yellow walls she helped paint herself. The aftermath at work unfolded quickly. Trevor was terminated immediately. The VP resigned the following week. The company filed insurance claims for the misappropriated funds and began the process of repaying affected employees. I received my full bonus plus compensation for the raised discrepancies Trevor had engineered over years. The amount was substantial, enough for a down payment on the modest house I'd never imagined owning. The CEO created a new position for me, Director of Operational Accountability, leading a team of 3 analysts. My first task was implementing the original efficiency plan, which ultimately exceeded the projected savings. Sometimes when Arya is sleeping, I sit in our small backyard and think about choices. Trevor lost everything, his job, his reputation, and possibly his freedom after the financial audit led to a criminal investigation, revealing a pattern going back much further than his time at our company. I never wanted to destroy anyone. I just wanted what was rightfully earned. I wanted my daughter to breathe easily in a home without mold. I wanted to answer her questions about money without that knot of anxiety in my chest. Power corrupts when it operates without accountability. Trevor believed his connections protected him from consequences. The VP thought company hierarchy outweighed company ethics. They were both wrong. My revenge wasn't crafty or complex. It was simply the truth, meticulously documented and presented when it mattered most. Arya starts third grade next week. Her new school has a science program she's excited about. Her asthma attacks have decreased by 70% since we moved. My mother lives in our spare room now. Her medical care finally consistent. These are the real consequences. Not just Trevor's downfall, but my daughter's rising health. Not just financial recovery, but the breaking of a cycle of powerlessness. Not just professional advancement, but the knowledge that systems can change when people speak up. If you've stayed with my story this long, thank you. Your time and attention mean more than you know. If something in this resonated with you, please leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Have you ever faced a situation where speaking up felt impossible but necessary? How did you handle it? Every story shared helps someone else feel less alone in their struggle. And if you found value here, consider subscribing for more. We're all just trying to find our way through complicated situations. It helps to walk together.